we can start. Welcome to our workshop. We organize this from a collaboration activity between two European projects called PARITY and INTERPRETER. I am Hans Blutzowait. I'm the technical project coordinator from the INTERPRETER project. And right now, here should be also the technical coordinator from PARITY, but he has still some problems to join us. So I hope he can do that very soon. Just a short sketch of the INTERPRETER project. It is one of the smaller ones. We are 9 partners from 6 European countries, and we are trying our solutions in 3 different pilots from at the DSOs, Cuerva from Spain and Ores from Belgium, and also DTU is running one of the pilots. Our solution is a software platform which integrates a total of 11 tools, which where there's a heart of the whole thing is a grid modeling tool, which helps the DSOs, the system operators, to obtain a grid model where you can run load flows, obtain this grid model from their information they have available. So the platform is creating a common data model, like a data lake, which then gives the opportunity for collection of modular services using this information and giving this service, for example, for planning or for grid operation. So that is, I don't want to occupy too much time for this presentation, so you know what is INTERPRETER about. And as we also look into services for flexibility, we included it here in this workshop. Our plan is to have first a set of 4 short presentations. We estimated at around 10 minutes each to present different ideas, different backgrounds, and then to have at around 1:45 to start our roundtable discussion, where I hope we can have interesting conversations, and also then we will open the questions and answers option for all you attendees. You can send your comments, your messages, and we will try to include it also in the discussion to answer the questions and maybe discuss some comments. As we have some technical problems which my colleague here is the background is trying to solve. For the moment, the PARITY presentation or the presenters from the PARITY project are not here. So okay, we will see if we can do something about that. Anyway, maybe we will skip this presentation, leave this for the end. And okay, so our first speaker is Filippo Bovera from Politecnico di Milano, and will give us a short overview of the European legislation and implementation of distributed flexibility markets. So please.
Thank you, Hans. And good morning, everyone. Yeah, I will try to share my screen. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I think that now you can see
live directly. Yes.
My screen, and I can make it large.
I will try now one thing.
Okay. So
and
if everything is okay and you can see and hear me, I can start. Okay.
I think it's
so
okay.
Okay, so as I said, thank you for inviting me to this workshop. As a first speaker, I will have an introduction about the topic of today, which is distributed flexibility procurement. And I will have this introduction talking about European regulatory framework. So first of all, do we all know that we need flexibility and that not programmable resources development, the electrification of energy demands, and also some development of high power application has put some pressure on distribution network. So nowadays distribution system operator need to have instruments and tool to manage this kind of issues and situation and problem on distribution networks. In particular, they firstly resort to their own flexibility, which is mainly due to reconfiguration of grid topology and on-load tap changer, for example, but they in the long term need some other intervention, which are mainly linked to grid reinforcement, but also to some other more cost-effective solution, as we will see today. First of all, I would like to start from the European legal basis, since in the last 10 years at the European level, we have introduced a lot of discussion about distributed and demand-side flexibility. And in particular, Article 32 of the Internal Electricity Market Directive stated that customers should have access to electricity market, both to trade their demand flexibility and also to trade their self-generated electricity. In this sense, this article also states that distribution system operator in their network development plans need to ensure the right balance between network structural investment and flexibility exploitation. So this is the main European legal basis, and starting from this, we can say that DSO have many different solutions for procuring flexibility, and I tried to report all of them in this table, starting from a rule-based approach, which is mainly based on technical prescription for demand response services. Then we have connection agreements that are mainly based on non-firm capacity connection, where users typically are granted with a reduction in connection charges or a reduction in grid fees. Some more advanced solutions are instead based on static or dynamic network tariff, which are mainly implicit price signals to have some self-dispatching demand response, let's say from the end user side. On the other hand, the topic of today are market-based solutions, which are based on a procurement of flexibility on a competitive basis. Okay. Before describing this kind of solution, we need to know that we need to have some basic assumption and precondition to implement a market, a local flexibility market. I resumed all the main assumptions in these three boxes, starting from the regulatory one. We don't need to have a remuneration scheme for DSOs which is biased toward iron and copper solutions, so capital expenditure solution. Moreover, we need to have a full ownership unbundling between the marketplace operation activities carried out by the DSO and the competitive activities carried out in the same holding, in the same corporation. Beyond the regulatory assumption, we also have some technical prerequisites, which are mainly based on observability, so knowing the state of the assets on the grid, and controllability, so controlling and activating correctly the flexibility resources. Lastly, we also need to have some operational principles which are linked to advanced forecast and control tools for the estimation of the grid and of the state of the grid, and we need also to have some common information model for data exchange between all relevant actors involved in the local flexibility trading. Okay, beyond this precondition, we also need to take care of probably the most important issue, which is the coordination between different system operators. In this sense, in Europe, in the last year, we have developed a lot of discussions, starting from five main solutions that you can see on the right-hand side of the presentation. Then, in the last TSO-DSO report, we have developed three main options. Option 1, which foresees separate management of the congestions by TSO and DSO. Option 2, where this congestion management is combined, but still we have a different marketplace where we consider and trade balancing bids. And the last option, which is option 3, in which we have a combined congestion management and also a combined marketplace where we have all our balancing bids. This kind of issue is very important because we need that every system operator has the right information and the right access to solve security problem along the grid, and at the same time we need the right competition and liquidity in local flexibility market, which is usually the main problem. In this sense, we have also to design products for our local flexibility market. We know that electricity balancing guidelines provides a set of reference parameters for product design. However, for local flexibility market, there can be a lot of locational and specific issues which must be assessed and coped with still at a regional level, let's say. In this sense, it is very important to have what we call dynamic regulation. So sandboxes and pilot projects which are in place currently in Europe in a lot of countries. And it is very important to have research projects such as the ones that we are talking about today, Interpreter and PARITY, which test different solutions and provide more know-how to national regulatory authorities. Which are the main design solution that we research for, that we seek for in market product for local flexibility market? Well, we need to have specific enough products to solve congestion and balancing problems. On the other hand, they must be also broad as possible to facilitate market liquidity. In the last TSO-DSO report, we had the introduction of a very important tool, in my opinion, which is the Flexibility Resource Register. This register is a place where we can gather and share relevant information on potential resource of flexibility. Through this register, basically, all the system operators have access to the information about FSP, not only connecting system operator. And in this register, we can have all sorts of information. So not only technical data, but also data related to the location of a resource or administrative data. Okay, the Flexibility Resource Register should help in monitoring and activating the flexibility resources, should help in the unbalanced settlement phase, and so can provide also a data exchange platform for aggregators or in general providers of services and stakeholders involved in local flexibility market. From the point of view of market stakeholder, the main advantages is for sure the possibility to implement in a simple way revenue stacking. This is because you can produce and bid a unique bid in the form that it is more fair for you, and then all system operator can access this information the information about your flexibility through this bid in a very simple way and in a very coordinated way, much more coordinated way. This improves the competition and the liquidity in the market, and also increases the attractiveness of local flexibility platform for flexibility providers. Okay. So lastly, to conclude this introduction for this workshop, I just want to highlight which is the procurement procedure for flexibility resources. You can see that we have some minimum requirement definition, both from the point of view of the product traded on the market and from the network point of view. We have some standard bid to be presented on the market. We have a process of market coordination between the different system operator, and finally the information of the segment is sent to all the parties involved. So I think that this is enough, and I hope this is helpful for further discussion, and I thank you for your attention. Thank you a lot.
Thank you very much, Filippo, for this interesting introduction and overview. So let's now go forward. This was now the plan that Stelios and Tiro provide us an overview of the PARITY project. We are still looking for some solution for this. So for the moment, we will go to the next presenter, which we have here online with us. It's a presenter from Manuel Reyes. Reyes is working at Turning Tables, which is a company which is participating in those projects, PARITY and Interpreter. So it's interesting to see his view. Manuel, are you ready?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay.
So
I'm going to share my screen now. Let me know if you can see it.
Yes.
Well, so first of all, thank you very much, Hans, for the opportunity to be here. And well, I'm going to talk about Interpreter project and how we deal with flexibility in this project. Just a small introduction. Yeah, Turning Table is a technological company providing innovative solutions in the energy field, and also looking for new business models, different than the traditional ones. And in general, we have a learning by doing approach, as you will see later, based and taking advantage of our living lab. Okay, in general, just a introduction, a small introduction. We are living a period, as you may know, you will know, of energy transitions, where we are going to have new assets into the grid that must be technically integrated, and also we have the appearance of new players, new stakeholders that will give rise to new type of relationships, therefore new type of business models. So this is the framework where both projects are born. So in general, as you will see, hopefully later, we'll have new challenges that PARITY will deal with. Okay, we will have new challenges related to the participation of these new stakeholders into markets. This is where PARITY is focused by means of local energy markets and so on. And on the other hand, we have Interpreter, okay? So we have that situation where DSOs are facing new issues relating to the digitalizations and management of the grid. So because they will have a lot of new devices sending information, talking different languages, which is a real, let's say, Tower of Babel situation. And they will also have problems due to the introduction of non-manageable assets like PV or wind energy that will give rise to new grid quality problems. So in this field, Interpreter will provide new tools for the DSO, trying to turn this threatening due to the penetration of these assets into new opportunities for for managing the grid, no? And in this context, flexibility, which is the main issue of this workshop, comes to provide a mechanism for interactions of prosumers and DSOs, and this will provide a high added value between prosumers and DSOs and vice versa. So this is the main link, okay, that we will find in these new markets. I will not enter into market. This is just to focus, but from all the situations that we will see in Parity, we will be focused into how to manage these congestions by the DSO, okay, in all these contexts. Parity will mainly provide a new set of tools supporting DSOs with the planning and the operation of the grid. In this sense, first of all, we will translate and adapt all this variety of information coming from all protocols and new protocols into a single platform, enriching the data and also putting this into value. Also, as Hans was commenting, there will be a new modeling tool in order to be able to replicate the performance of the grid. So over this platform with the data by means of these common information models and these tools, we will be able to different specific applications for the DSO, such as predictive maintenance, capacity allocation, and so on, but we will be focused into grid congestions. Specifically, we are actively participating in the use case belonging to task 4.2, together with our colleagues of DTO, CIRSE, and so on. And the main objective is to manage the voltage deviations of the grid by means of flexibility. In this sense, we will base our use case on the experimentation on our Living Lab. This Living Lab is just a part of the grid of Grupo Cuerva, which is a Spanish DCO, okay, that we are managing. And in general, what we are doing is to digitalize more than needed by the government and regulation requirements. In this sense, we have a lot of clients, loads, and distributed resources all over the grid. And over this, we can develop different initiatives in a real-world environment. I mean, this is not a lab. This is real grid where we are working hand in hand with end users. In this sense, the target of our use case is to develop a tool set for Grupo Cuerva in order to use this flexibility in order to prevent and solve congestion issues. How we do it? Okay, we take several steps. First of all, we monitor and provide a high visibility of the grid. This is important because, as you may know, the information coming from the different devices may come with a high delay. So by using our forecast techniques, we can work in a real-time approach. Okay. So with this information, we can forecast different alerts for medium voltage and low voltage for forecasting possible congestions with a high granularity, different substation, transformation settings, and so on. So once that we can forecast and we detect which are these potential issues, we develop what we call the grid queue function. That is, okay, we have different situations in different places. Let's see how can we solve this by exchanging energy in specific nodes. That is, by using flexibility. So in order to do this, we are using the market simulation bidding process that is developed by DTO in order to decide which is the best assets and the price and the cost depending on the distributed resources deployed all over the network. And in order to match these two parts, we have the asset registry that is related to what Felipe was commenting before, about this register for registering all the information from the flexibility available, and then based on this we can decide how to use this. Okay, just a snapshot. This is an example of how to forecast the congestion alerts. Just this black line would be what will happen with the grid voltage without this type of solutions. And if we use flexibility, we can maintain, maintain the voltage between the tolerated limits, as you can see in the green light. And we can do it by with 5-minute resolutions with a time period up to 2 hours. Just as a comment, just more kind of industrial comment, this is a new market trends that has been called as energy clouds by consultancies as Guidehouse, which are former Navigance consultancies, that constitute an alternative or complementary to traditional ADMS. Okay, the issue is that this type of solutions still requires a higher level of maturity and higher innovation. That is what we are doing in interpreted projects by adding these new modeling tools, all these algorithms, and working especially in the field of flexibility, which is a tool that still needs more due to the current uncertainty about how it is going to be solved. And well, this is of visualization, just to comment that these platforms are designed for a complete automatic operation of the grid. The issue is that nowadays the distribution operators doesn't want to hear about anybody else managing their grid. So by the moment, it's just a supporting tool, okay, and providing all these features that we have been discussing. And well, as a summary, just that to comment that we have in this context new stakeholders, new business model, new technical requirements, and both projects, Parity and Interpreter, comes to shed light to provide solution in this environment. Okay, and well, one important conclusion for me is that this universal access to unified data and modeling tools provided by Interpreter is going to provide a high visibility and is going to be able to create different tools, new services for the DSOs that will provide a high added value. And in all of this, flexibility is the joint point for providing a higher added value between prosumers, energy community, and DSOs. And well, this is mostly what I wanted to present today.
Thank you very much, Manuel. So now he disappeared. I just wanted to announce that Stelios is with us. Yes, he's here. Stelios.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, that
okay.
is.
Okay, so I will proceed with my presentation now, correct?
Yes, thank you very much. Okay, just one technical question. Can you also cover the part from Diego Casado, at least a bit overview, because Diego is not entering.
Yes, of course.
Technical problems are. I'm not sure what is the reason. He's still trying, but probably he won't be able.
Yes, I will provide an overview of the part about user involvement as well.
Thank you very much.
So the presentation is the parity approach on the local flexibility market concept and user involvement. So the main topics is the parity concept, local market design, market participants, and the traffic light concept, and the user involvement. So regarding the vision of the parity, It is to enable setup and operation of local flexibility markets at the distribution network level based on blockchain technology and IoT, using flexibility management tools that are based on IoT, and also using tools for smart grid monitoring and management. Also, the objective is to provide contributions on topics such as investigation of market coupling mechanisms and definition of LFM actors and policy reform recommendations. As you can see in this figure, the main actors actively involved are the DSO, the local market operator, the aggregator, and of course the prosumers. So we are developing tool sets for all these categories of actors. The two main enabling technologies are the IoT and the blockchain. Regarding the IoT, we have the IoT network, which is responsible for the monitoring and performing automating control actions, and also for automated user profiling by calculating thermal and visual comfort and also occupancy. And finally, IoT tools also are used in order to get the information required for flexibility forecasting per controllable asset. On the right, you can see the main assets that we consider in the project. About the blockchain, blockchain is an immutable, decentralized, distributed digital ledger. We have a component called a blockchain agent, which is responsible for the connection to the blockchain platform. And also we have defined service level agreements, and these are represented in a JSON format, which is human and machine readable. And through the use of these service level agreements, it is possible to have automated monitoring and KPI validation, and perform also the actions for transaction settlement. Here we have identified, regarding the local market design, main important parameters for defining a local market structure. These are the definition of market participants, the instruments for providing flexibility, the market operator, the local scope of the market, and finally coordination between flexibility requesting parties. Regarding the market participants, the main active participants are DSO, prosumers, aggregators, and market operator. And also as indirect participants, we consider also TSO and balance possible parties. Regarding instruments for providing flexibility, flexibility can be provided through the market or be control based as well in some cases, as I will show later. For the market operator, we have the market operator that is responsible for the local energy market and local flexibility market, and provides the platform, registration, clearing, and settlement. Regarding the local scope, we consider the medium voltage and low voltage distribution grid. And local granularity can be provided through locational attributes or locational grid prices. As for the coordination between flexibility parties, we follow the traffic light concept, which will be presented later. So two markets are introduced in PARITY. We have the local electricity market, which facilitates peer-to-peer trading among prosumers and is operated by the local energy market operator. And also we have the local flexibility market, which activates flexibility mainly for the DSO's needs, but also for the TSO and BRP through the ancillary and the wholesale market participation. There are two possible designs for the local flexibility market. The first one is an explicit local flexibility market, which is dedicated market platform operated by the LFM operator. And the implicit LFM design, which is implicitly integrated in the local energy market, and the DSO imposes varying grid prices to the prosumers. And then prosumers can react to these price signals by adapting their trades on the local energy market. So now we are focusing on the development of an implicit LFM design. DSO monitors the grid network state and is able to produce signals that denote the state of the grid based on the traffic light concept. So you have these four possible states in the grid. In the green state, everything is fine. There is no constraint violation. In the yellow state, the constraint violation has been forecasted by the DSO. In the red state, the distribution grid stability is in danger due to constraint violations such as congestions and voltage violations. And in the black state, there's a grid outage. Now, on this table on the right, you can view the status of its market, LEM, LFM, and ancillary wholesale, and also the activities that are being performed in its grid state. So here the main difference between explicit LFM and the implicit LFM design is when the grid is in the yellow state. So in the explicit LFM case, the LEM is paused, and in the implicit, the LEM is active. And also for the same for the ancillary and wholesale markets. And also when in a red state, all markets are paused, and here DSO is allowed to override market-based contracts and to perform direct load control of assets. With regard to the aggregator, the aggregator toolset that is being developed provides these services that are shown, that are listed here. Of course, the first is a flexibility aggregation, which it is for aggregating flexibility of the prosumers and their assets. The second service is the creation of virtual power plants, which is done through asset and prosumer dynamic clustering based on various input data shown here. And finally, the optimization flexibility activation part, which refers to the flexibility that's provided through the market, and the prioritization that is made based on the grid state, and also the flexibility that can be provided to DSO in near real time when the network is in red state. Other important topics that we considering are the interoperability, privacy, and security. Regarding interoperability, we have defined data models in JSON format, and these are stored in a repository, and the information is accessed via HTTP Web Services API that has been developed. Another important topic is privacy. So here we apply pseudonymization for using the blockchain to protect the identities of users and assets. We have selected a kid hash method for encoding actual name to pseudonym, and a mapping table for recovery is used for the opposite process. Finally, with regard to security, the blockchain offers security by design due to the cryptography that's applied. Also, we apply authentication for both users and parity system components and authorization. And we use secure protocols for all data exchange such as TLS. Now for the second part, that's about user involvement. And users may be tempted to perform investment decisions on flexibility assets. So they should be first interested in participate in the peer-to-peer trading of the local energy market platform. They should rely on smart contracts based on blockchain and be aware of these contracts and the possible, for example, possible penalties that may be applied. Also should react to price signals and understand that the control of some flexibility assets will be granted to operator in cases of yellow and red signaling produced by the DSO. So a study also was made in order to identify barriers that hinder the end user participation on the local flexibility markets. So here we can see, you can see the categories that these barriers have been identified. For example, these are the current lifestyle, administrative, standardization, trust, technical, and costs. And the colors here denote the category that belong. These are technical, social, regulatory, economic, and mixed category. So here is a similar view as before. Important categories are the lifestyles that this is referred mainly to the impact on the end user users behaviors and involvement related. And also the trust category, very important, is in this is security and privacy. And finally, of course, cost is another important category for the implementation and operation. Also, main risks categorization has been performed. Here we can use the main risk identified are technical risks, trust, administrative costs, and lifestyle. We can see that mainly technical risks are much more than the others. Also, there are some second order risks related to system and algorithms, lack of regulation and confidence, reliability, and other specific risks. Now, after a survey we performed, we have received the answers from 832 people from the different countries represented in PARITY about their participation in a peer-to-peer market with transactions. And here we are highlighting the main lessons learned from this survey. Some of these that are very important is that people do not want to lose their autonomy. Another point is that it is needed to convincing users about the neutrality of the market operator. And also some other lessons learned are listed here regarding possible issues and complaints that may have. And these are points that the market operator must take into account as they are important for the operation and the satisfaction of the users. Some other points are that people are afraid about potential system errors or cyber attacks. High monetary investments and reluctance about return of investment are main barriers for participations. And finally, people prefer a system that optimizes the use of energy first, rather than purchase electricity directly. So this was the presentation from.
Thank you very much, Stelios. Thank you very much for your extra effort to present what you were not foreseen to do. So before I give the floor to Thomas, I'd like to introduce. Okay.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, I just wanted to share first the slide to present you, but it's okay. It's good. We are
running late.
10 minutes behind the schedule. The technical problems. I think this is a general problem for Microsoft. We were seeing that this is a random. Some people could enter, some not. So go.
Okay, so thank you, Hans, for inviting me. As Hans said, we are not participating in the projects, but we are working in the same area, so we are interested in sharing our experiences with the project team. And I'm very thankful for Stelios to have pointed at the risks and barriers, because I think we can contribute to solving and overcoming some of them. So what I want to present to you is what we do in Germany. It is a project that currently is already inhabited for the largest part. It has been built from scratch. And what I try to show in this slide is how it relates to what I have read as the objectives of PARITY and Interpreter, and how we do it, what we do. So it is about flexibility management. So we use flexibility as a virtual battery, and shifting loads is much cheaper than using batteries. We want to use any number, any power, any time, and any availability of the flexibility. So even if you have very short-term flexibility, it can be used. The intelligence in our system mostly resides in the appliance itself, or the home energy management systems, because our focus is on self-dispatch. So the decisions are made by the customer or software that he delegates this decision to. So we talk about smart contracts. In our case, it's based on dynamic tariffs. Dynamic means really dynamic. It means update rate every second. That has many important consequences for system stability and others. And it could be tariffs for energy, but it could also be dynamic grid fees. The contract, you can accept the contract by switching on, which means you accept the current price. If you switch off, you don't accept it. It's very simple. It doesn't need any pre-qualification. And of course, it's fully automated because we don't expect the customer to observe the price and take decisions. Smart agents do it for them. So we have, as I mentioned, a real life demo. Most inhabitants of this demo already moved in, so it's been newly built. It's compliant with current German regulation. So we are limited in what we are doing, but we do what we can. And industry players are involved. That means a utility which operates it, and suppliers such as heat pump manufacturers. And also we want to show that we can create value for the grid. So the system will be grid friendly or even grid supportive. It is extremely simple to implement and therefore cheap to implement in terms of information communication technology. And by design, it includes very high privacy and cybersecurity measures. So this is what it looks like. So in the background, you see Lake Constance, and I think it could be even Switzerland on the other side of the lake. In the foreground, you see this newly developed smart quarter with 22 new households. At the right-hand side, you see some of the actors that are involved. At the bottom left, you see the state of Baden-Württemberg, which funded it. And I can inform you that on the last Sunday, we had an election, and the Green Party, which run the government for the last 2 sessions, I think a total now of 8 or 10 years, has been re-elected. So this has been the funding. It's not a European funded project. So this is the view from the top. So at the right-hand side, you see the sketch of the semi-detached houses powered with heat pumps in yellow. At the bottom, it's flats powered with a CHP, excuse me. And there will be rooftop solar. There could be batteries. There could be electric vehicle chargers, and we even have flexible appliances like fridges, dishwashers, and so on that get integrated. The objective is to integrate roughly 100 participating devices, because we consider the flexibility of the device and not of the customer, because the customer receives the same service that he has been receiving before. Now, this is a simulation that's been done by one of our project partners. At the left-hand side, you see the ordinary operation when you have no dedicated local coordination, local electricity market. That's a summer scenario of 2 days. At the top, you see the heat exchange, electricity exchange with the grid. Below you see local production of 2 PV peaks and the CHP. You see at the bottom, you see the heat pumps, both the individual operation and the aggregate consumption. And the way we see it, we derive the price signal from grid physics. So when we are exporting, when we have a positive peak, our price has a negative peak. And when we are importing, our price has a positive peak. So we just invert the energy export to the grid, put a price signal in it and feed it to the devices which are enabled to self-dispatch. So we have an algorithm in the heat pumps and the CHP. And what you see on the right-hand side is the reaction. So all the heat pumps now operate when the sun is shining. They even react to the clouds moving over the solar panel to try to balance out the production as much as they can. And the CHP runs for a shorter period with less power, and later in the evening when everybody's sitting in front of their TV and they're consuming electricity, so it's trying to provide that. So we could go through other days. So this is a winter day. It looks very different, of course, and at the same time you have the CHP running and the heat pumps. And what is very interesting is you can see that the grid load, the export to the grid is pretty flat. So all the peaks have disappeared, but again, it's coordinated by a local market to maximize the self-consumption. This is a spring date. I'm not going into much detail. The only thing that's different here is you can see how household appliances, rather than washing your dishes or your clothes in the evening, where you have to import energy, they could operate in the early morning when you have a surplus of energy and add more value to the system. Now, this is what happens at the system level of the smart quarter, whereas before on the green dot you have 50% of energy self-consumption. Now you have over 63. 63 was the starting point. We improved the algorithm. We are more into 66, and that is without any battery. It's just the flexibility of heat pumps and CHP. In the German market conditions, where the feed-in tariff for energy that you inject is much less than the price that you pay for the energy you buy, that creates an additional margin, which is 1.5 cents per kilowatt hour for the initial condition, and we aim for 80% self-consumption rate when we include the electric vehicles and the dishwashers, which reflects an added value of 4 cents per kilowatt hour, and we want to push the technology cost well below 1 cent per kilowatt hour, so there will be an economic benefit for everybody. How do we do this? By actually putting the algorithm on the machine that's already there. That's the heat pump. So it will just react to one more information, which is the dynamic price. So the conclusion of what we are saying, we are bringing physics and markets directly together. What is good for the system, and you can see that from the physics, is financially attractive. So everybody does what is attractive for them. And because everybody is reacting to price signal and doing something useful for the grid, it also is good for the grid. So thank you for your attention, and I'm very happy for more details and the discussion.
Thank you very much, Thomas.
Was I too fast? No, that's okay.
No, I was too slow with my activating my microphone. Thank you very much for being short and not extending more the small delay. But I think we have still half an hour to exchange opinions and to maybe also answer some questions. Now we already received some questions from our attendees. I can communicate right now. We have 68 people hearing us. That is quite nice. So there have been some questions. I think during the presentations, there have been partly answered. I propose I just launch these topics. So for the roundtable discussion, that may be interesting to have in mind. Also, there was one question asking who, which party can actually operate those local flexibility markets. So which entity would interact with the end users? Then another question was if there is some minimum for flexibility offers. I think the answer was already given. There should be some kind of aggregation, so that for the flexibility, because it is true that a single machine would not act directly with a DSO. And then there was an interesting question I just launched about the what type of auction you think is the best one. There are different types, so maybe you have some opinion on that. And regarding there was one question about how end users can be incentivized. So that I think Thomas gave some interesting keywords. One is automation, of course, and if at the end the self-consumption is increased, you pay less. So that is actually the incentivation. But we see also in other European projects to make the numbers come out as an actual advantage. Yeah, needs to be the technology to be cheap enough, and also the storage. But as Thomas mentioned, the actual technology which is used need to be cheap enough to, so all parties have an advantage of that. And then there was also some question, if you have some ideas on that. It was asking about price elasticity, how to forecast that, or how to model how possibly the end user could react on price signals. So that is just to launch some ideas. Now for the roundtable discussion, we have here also Guntram Pressmeyer from what was it, from E7, I think was.
Yes, from E7. Hello.
Yeah. I will just try to, let's see. Could you share 1 second your screen so we can see you? Hello, Guntram.
Sorry. Hello. Yeah.
Yeah. Then we have also David Rivola.
Hello.
Hello. So he's also involved in the PARITY project. I just forgot your company. What was the name?
Hive Power.
Hive Power. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay. So is there somebody who wants to start the discussion? If you have some questions to some speakers, or answering some question I mentioned.
Yes, regarding the question about how can users be incentivized, of course, one target that could have is to provide cost savings to the users that provide the flexibility in emergency situations to the DSO to solve congestion problems. And another possible feature that we can have is to inform them about the environmental impact. For example, to present them metrics about reduced CO2 emissions on the prosumer application due to the increased usage of renewable energy sources, for example.
Yes, maybe also from my side, I also agree with mostly with the second part Stelios said. So thinking of the environmental impact, I mean that's also regarding the question of the elasticity of the end user, the price elasticity. So from my opinion, when we're talking about households, the price elasticity is very low. So if we have the automated dispatching, this of course helps, because then we don't have any effort from the end user side. And yes, to really be user centric, I think this has to be done, yes, automated, and the cost savings, I think it's the second priority. That's just my opinion.
Thank you. I now see some.
I think Thomas wants to add something to that.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes, I raised my hand. Thank you. So just because of the question on the auction, what we implement is a perfect continuous variation auction, where we take the balance of the last second, and any deviation from the last second is used to find the new price. But coming to the question of price elasticity, if you have an electric vehicle which you're parking in your garage and it's standing there for 10 hours and needs to charge 2 hours, its price sensitivity can be described like a must-run power plant. So it will charge. It doesn't care about the absolute price level. It is only looking for relative price advantages. So if at the beginning of the 10 hours it's cheapest, we'll go for the beginning. If at the end it's cheapest, we'll go for the end. If at the middle it's cheapest, we'll go for the middle. So they are only, most of these actors, heat pumps the same, are just going for relative price advantages. So we are not interested for this function in the absolute price level. We are only interested in the spreads and the changes. And that's where we are reacting on.
Thomas, there was some specific question for you.
Okay.
Could you explain a bit more the benefits for the grid? Is this included somehow?
Okay, I did not include this in the presentation due to time limitations. But there are 3 levels of service to the grid. First, because we optimize self-consumption and mobilize local consumption when there is local production, the peaks of the energy exchange with the grid are reduced by principle, because of the principle of, and you see this in some of the simulations. Of course, we have a very small community with very little flexibility. If you have one which is 10 times as big, you will have more potential. The second point is that we will try out a dynamic grid tariff. So imagine you have a transformer which is close to being congested. You send a price signal down to your customers, and because they are unable to react to price signals, they can react to them. And the third thing we are doing is we are testing, because our customers can react within seconds, to provide auxiliary services like primary control. So you can actually have end customer devices, and there is a simulation which I can send you separately. I presented it in Lucerne in Switzerland. That fridges and freezers can actually help stabilize the grid. So we talk about different kinds of grid services, and they are all created by converting them into price signals for end customers, either dynamic energy tariffs or dynamic grid tariffs. Does it answer your question? I hope.
Yeah, I think so. There was an interesting question also, just to have an idea. What is the difference in Germany between the feed-in tariff and the electricity tariff? If you have them.
Oh, that's a very complicated question, because it depends on what type of user you are and what type of generation it is. In our case, we talk about end customers, and the typical energy tariff in Germany is 30 cents per kilowatt hour. That includes taxes and many things. And as far as for PV installations, it depends on when you installed it. These days, I think it is in the order of 10 to 15 cents per kilowatt hour. It also depends on the size of the installation and things like that. But we are really talking about, I mean, what you and there are also some corrections, because you have to pay partial grid fees, so it's extremely complicated. But it is very large, and that is where this 4 cents are taken off, but does not include yet, for example, carbon pricing. So once you have carbon pricing, this price benefit will grow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe I can add something to this, just to complete the question for Thomas, because I make the example of Italy, where energy prices for domestic user are very low compared to other tariff, especially those one in the German case. And also in Italy we have net metering right now, which is being replaced by energy communities in the legislation. But anyhow, right now we still have net metering, which is something which is bad from purely sense for flexibility and what we are reaching.
As
so
the opposite of
yes,
grid friendliness.
Yes. So I just want to ask to Thomas, if in Germany do you have something like net metering? But I imagine that the answer is not. But and also if you feel that low prices and low tariff for domestic user can be bad for flexibility provision and implicit flexibility signals.
So the answer is, you have 2 meters, one which measures the energy you get from the grid, and one which counts the energy you provide from your PV. So that is not a net metering scheme. When you say about high and low prices, in Germany we have a lot of prices to end customers that have nothing to do with energy. I think the market price for electricity is some 3 cents per kilowatt hour, and I think Germany has some of the lowest in Europe. And the grid fees, I'm not quite sure how much they are, but they are 6 or 7 cents, and the rest is taxes and added value tax and everything. But as I've tried to say, what is attractive for self-consumption is not the absolute level of energy cost, but the price delta. So if you have, and that's the only thing that creates value to the end customer when they're flexible. So I think it depends more on the fact if you have a high penetration of renewables, because high penetration of renewables means there will be very, very low price times when you have a lot of sun or wind, even negative prices. And you will have periods where you have very high prices when you have neither sun nor wind. And if you can actually give this information to the end customers and allow them to react to them and provide their flexibility to actually counteract, they have a business case. Does it answer your question, Felipe?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
I would like to take the opportunity, as we have here several European countries, they could say something also. We had Germany and Italy. Could we have also some comments from Austria and Greece?
And Switzerland also.
Switzerland. Oh, you're from Switzerland. Oh, yeah. From the
Nearly
name,
the
I
same.
was thinking of Italy.
Yeah, but Italian speaking
that's
Switzerland.
nice. If you could comment just on the situation of the prices, or maybe also some.
Yeah, in Switzerland we have already a scheme for self-consumption communities. So it's already possible to create some local markets. There are a lot of regulations and laws, like you have to have one unique point of common coupling to the public grid. But then you have already some freedom to set up local market schemes because it runs in a private premises. And more than that, also we have still a bundled situation for the DSOs, for small consumers. And the DSOs can propose also alternative tariff schemes for the public grid, which includes also power components. So they have a possibility to implicitly steer the local flexibility through this kind of smart tariffs. This is not something which it's not a pilot project, but it's really something which is already allowed by the current law.
Stelios from Greece. What's the situation in Greece?
Yes, in Greece we have a relatively new and I think detailed legislation on energy communities. So there is now some advancement on these communities. And regarding the tariff schemes, I'm not very aware of this, so I can provide more information at this point. I don't know if there is any other partner from Greece that can provide this information.
As far as I know, Greece has a special situation of a lot of islands, and the real energy cost on the islands is really high, and as I know, highly subsidized. So there is a high interest to solve this problem of these many energy islands, I think.
Yes, that is true. The situation with the islands also. There are some projects ongoing for interconnecting the mainland grid with large islands such as Crete, and this will help also to have a more to increase the stability of the grid and also exploit better generation of the renewable sources that are installed both in mainland and on some of the islands.
Here was another question. I don't know if it's the same person was asking if it was also for Thomas. If he knows if there is a problem with the it was both for the heat pump. If there's a limitation or a reduction of life, if it is switched more often on and off, and a similar question regarding the combined heat and power, if it is not running on nominal power if this means an additional cost, operational cost.
Okay. So there are two parts of the answer. So the first part is that it is fully under control of the manufacturer of the heat pump or the CHP, how they allow their device to react to the price signal. So if there are, for example, minimum runtime constraints, or if there are maximum cycle constraints, the algorithm will include that. So in our case, it's an Austrian manufacturer of heat pumps, and the algorithm will be under their control. So even if there were any effects on life cycle, they would be fully under control of these effects, because they are in charge of the product quality for the customer, which would not be the case if the utility would switch it on and off. The second part of the answer, of course, when you design systems for such devices to be flexible, you will design them for higher power and for more cycles. One of the simplest way of reducing cycles is to have a larger thermal buffer. So instead of 300 liters, you use 600 liters, which does not add a lot of cost, but it adds a lot of flexibility. Maybe that is, so you will have an increase of switching times, but you will keep the cycles under control, and of course you never switch off a heat pump at a moment where it should not be switched off because it's just been switched on. That's part of the algorithm that we provide.
Just a comment, Hans, if you allow me.
Yes, of course.
This is something that I think is very important in the case of energy storage, in the case of batteries, because you know that batteries are really impact depending on how you operate them, and also the frequency of operation. So I think this is something important that for the prosumer, their cost of producing or storing energy will depend on the operation. I think it's something that energy management systems shall include, because for them maybe they are earning more money in certain periods, but however their cost of producing can be significantly high, and until we reach a point, a real profitable point for introducing batteries, this is something that we should take care. It's something important, at least for me.
That's true. But the manufacturer of the battery should be aware that a good battery should be able to provide such kind of services. But here, if I may, my personal opinion is right now there is a huge investment underway for traction batteries for the all kinds of electric vehicles, and the stress for these batteries for moving a truck or for moving a car is really high, and also the environmental situation of temperatures and so on. So if you solve the problem on the car, the problem for stationary battery at your home is solved several times already.
Yeah, sure. But if you are adding a cycle of charging and discharging per day, that impacts. Okay, so
yes,
I mean, you're totally right. But
actual batteries have still this limitation of cycling, but this is one of the hot topics to be solved. Because it is interesting also for the materials which are involved, but we do not have to recycle the batteries every 5 years or so. There's but of course, but therefore I say that the development for vehicles will be also highly beneficial, and also if the charging process is slightly modified, if you compare that with the use of the battery when it is the car is driven, this variability is has less impact. And okay, this has to be kept in mind. And I think from Thomas's comment that the manufacturer is completely aware of how this asset is managed, of course, it's important. So my clock says 1:28. We have 2 minutes left. Somebody wants to give some time. Guntram, you did not talk too much. Would you say something the last 2 minutes?
Yes, maybe, because we talked before about the different frameworks of the local markets in the member states. So maybe from Austria to finish that, in the Austrian regulation, we are still under consultation process of the regulation on energy communities. So there is no such local market really operational. The only thing, and that's I think interesting all over Europe, that is going to this direction is business models that have that enable this energy sharing between prosumers. So just typical energy suppliers who use their balance group for peer-to-peer trading, basically. And I think that's these businesses are also the starting point for all these local business models that can emerge. And I think that's something to keep an eye on, and to further develop these business models towards also integrating the grid perspective. Yeah, that's I think something interesting for the future.
Thank you. So I think we reached the end of our workshop. I want to thank you all very much for participating. There have been also some questions from the audience. We had a peak of 77 attendees. Now we have 48 left. So I think we have also seen we reached some public, and we will see. I think we will share the recording. This workshop has been recorded. Will be shared with all attendees. There have been questions if we will share the actual presentations. If you agree, we can share the presentations in the PDF format on the project website. But as we can agree later by email. Okay. And I have nothing else to add. Thank you very much for your effort.
Thanks for the invitation.
A bit difficult with the technical problems, but at the end I think it turned out well. So of course you have our contacts if there are additional questions or ideas at your disposal. Also the from the PARITY projects, our people listening and are there to answer additional questions. So thank you very much, and see you at another occasion, I hope.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.